Hey guys, good morning. Today we're going to be doing some abstract design. I literally just woke up. I just want to go ahead, get a cup of coffee, and then we're going to hop right into Blender and we're just going to do some abstract design right off the bat because that's what abstract design is. You really don't know what it's going to be. That's the fun part about it. So let me go ahead, get a cup of coffee, and we'll hop right into this thing. Today's video is going to be super chill. I put out a poll recently asking you guys what Blender topic interested you most, and you guys said abstract art and animation, which is perfect. So what I'm going to do is literally just sit here, sip my coffee. We're just going to go ahead and make a project from scratch with absolutely zero plan and just kind of see where it takes us. So, and hopefully you guys like this type of video. I don't know where it's going to take me. I have no idea what our end result will be. There's really no goal. But sometimes that's how the best things are created. So let's go ahead and just open up a new document and just see what happens. No plan, just abstract art straight off the top of my head. Let's go ahead and get into it. So guys, I am going to be hiding my video camera. I'm just going to be focused solely on Blender today, so you guys will be able to see the whole screen, every part of my process. I'm just going to hide this so that we can just jump right into it and you guys can see every little detail that I'm doing on the screen. Alright. So we're in our new document here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything. Kind of start with a clean slate here. Now I think I want to use cycles for this project, so I'm going to enable cycles, GPU. I'm going to disable denoising, and I'm going to go ahead and enable denoising data in our passes here. So I'm going to go over to our compositor, use nodes, and as usual we're just going to add in a denoising node. I just pretty much do this for every project just because it kind of keeps things keep things denoised without having to do what are our options here? I think open image and then optics. This is just a really nice way to denoise things very, very easily. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to save this to my Instagram folder, and I'm just going to call this abstract art. And we're going to go ahead and save that. Now we have everything saved. I'm going to go over to our rendered view, and I'm going to add in an HDRI. Another recent thing that I learned, which is pretty awesome, is a sky texture. So sky texture is built into Blender, and it's really nice because they give you these presets. We have Pretham, which is more of a blue preset, Hosik/Wilkie, which is more of like a dark night kind of misty vibe, and then of course we have Nishita, which was the one I just showed you guys. But I am going to go ahead and select my own environment texture from my HDRI folder. Lately I've been loving this peppermint one, but let's go ahead and go with this outdoor one. God, excuse me. That looks excuse me, that looks very nice. So I really like this HDRI here. Now we don't really have anything in our scene yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and add in a plane to just kind of give us something to look at, so we kind of have just something going on here. And I'm going to apply a basic metallic shader to that. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to snap to my camera. Obviously we don't have anything just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and just add in a cylinder here, and I'm going to go ahead and give this an edge split modifier. I'm going to give this a bevel, and we're going to put the bevel before the edge split, and you'll understand that in a second, and then a subdivision surface modifier. If you were to add the bevel last, it just would not work. So guys, trust me, you want to add this bevel first. And this edge split is going to give us a nice smooth result when we go to shade smooth. I'm going to go ahead and give this 5 segments, shade that smooth, GZ to bring it up on the Z axis. And then I'm going to also back my camera up quite a bit. Actually, I'm going to make it an orthographic perspective. There we go, that looks a lot nicer. And let's go ahead and format this for Instagram, 1920 by 1920. Give us kind of like a higher resolution to work with, even though Instagram's native resolution is 1080 by 1080. I'm going to go ahead and make a new shader here for our cylinder. I'm going to keep it white, so I'm going to lower the hue and the saturation, bump up that metallic, and maybe just lower our roughness a bit. I like to, of course, play around with this anisotropic setting as well. As you can see, when I start to bump that up, we kind of get this stainless steel look, which I actually really like. So it's kind of just something fun to play with. And if we go back to our floor, I'm just going to raise the roughness quite a bit. That looks nice. And we can also change the color of our floor as well to kind of give us more contrast within our scene. I'm going to go ahead and save that for right now. I like what we have so far. Now, this might not be very abstract, but I do like this. So I'm going to go ahead and shade this smooth. Also, guys, another thing you can get in the habit of doing is clicking Auto Smooth in your normals over here. So you just want to go over to your object data properties, and you want to go ahead and enable that. Kind of just gives you a smoother look for whatever you're working with. So this looks really cool. You know, in terms of abstract art, I probably have to look up the actual definition. So let's just look up abstract art definition. Let's just see what Google says. Art that does not attempt to represent external reality, but seeks to achieve its effects using shapes, forms, colors, and textures. Interesting. Okay. So it's kind of like not real life, basically. So I mean, a cylinder, you could find that in real life, but if we kind of make it abstract enough, we can start to get some really interesting results. So another thing that's really fun to play around with in Blender is just color itself. So it's just fun to duplicate materials, just kind of give them any color that you want. Very, very fun stuff. Now, how can we make this super abstract? Well, let's start by selecting our cylinder. Okay, and I'm going to show you guys a cool little trick. I'm just going to go ahead and add a displacement modifier to this. I'm going to add this before our subdivision. I'm going to create a new displacement. Oops, I want to go ahead and bring that below the edge split. There we go. We want that between edge split and subdivision. And now we're going to go down here to our textures tab, and I'm going to click on clouds, and we're just going to see the result we get. Pretty interesting so far. Now there's actually not a lot of geometry to this as of right now. We would probably need to add more, but you can go ahead and go through these and just kind of check out the different results. Usually this works with different shapes a little bit better. So if we were to add in a sphere here and just move it off to the right, I'm just going to copy all those modifiers over. See, that's a little bit of a better result there. I'm also going to copy the material as well. So with a sphere, you're getting much more of an abstract shape. I mean, the cylinder does look cool, but I'm just not a huge fan of that displacement, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now maybe what we can do is we can go ahead and delete this for now. I'm going to go ahead and make this blue. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my camera up. Just kind of give us something like that to work with. And then I just want to bring this above my shape here. Okay, just like that. I'm going to check every side. It's nice. So another thing that you guys would probably want to get in the habit of doing if you're looking to center things, even if you're not looking to use exact metrics, G is to move. Just check your sides and check every angle so that you know something is centered the way that you want. That looks pretty good. I'm going to snap back to my camera view. Now I really like that. I actually kind of want to give this more of a copper shader. Actually, I think I did make a copper shader, so let's go ahead and grab that shader real quick. I'm going to go to open, go back to my, let's see, got to go all the way back to YouTube tutorials. Where's copper shader? Let's go ahead and open this. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but I'm actually offering this for free on Gumroad. So if you guys want to go ahead and download that, it's just a super simple node setup. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to bring it over into our abstract art project. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. Let's just see what that looks like within our scene there. Cool. That looks really nice. And of course we can make this any roughness we want. There's a ton of attributes that we can adjust here. That looks pretty cool so far. Maybe just a little bit smoother. I'm actually going to go into my shading tab. I'm going to snap to my camera view and zoom in on this. And we're just going to mess around with these nodes a little bit. The strength is pretty intense. Maybe we can turn that down quite a bit, get that smoother look. And then maybe for the scale, we can bump that up quite a bit too. That looks pretty cool. Still pretty abstract, although the strength is still really intense. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff where you guys can really fine-tune this however you want. Roughness, maybe bring that down quite a bit. So we still kind of have that copper look, still shiny, but it's still a little bit rough as well. The distortion's also very fun to play with. There's just so many ways that you can make this look how you want it, which is why sometimes when I'm creating things, it's kind of tough to decide on what I think looks great. It just takes a while because you really have to go back and forth and just experiment. Even just bumping up colors to different values can really drastically change your scene. Like even just doing that completely changes the scene. Now of course we are on our isometric view, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the camera 45 degrees on the z-axis, X and Y, I want them to be the same. So 7 and -7, which is going to go ahead and center our scene here. 7.5. Sometimes I like to go ahead and use even numbers just because, I don't know, it helps me think about where things are in the scene. And then for our X value, I'm going to do 52.7, which is like a nice isometric view. Cool. So that's a perfectly isometric view. So if we were to take some cubes here and move them around, as you can see, we're on that perfect point of view. That's going to give us that perfect, I think, isometry. I forget how to say that, but basically when you start stacking things, it makes perfect angles. I looked up online the exact degree that you want to set your camera angle to achieve this effect. So you guys can go ahead and do more research into isometry. That might not even be a word, but when you set up an isometric scene, you want to make sure that you have your camera angle set to that because it helps a lot. But so yeah, guys, I'm going to go ahead and actually delete these, but I just wanted to show you that actual isometric view, which is really nice. Now maybe we could also apply a displacement to our floor here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into solid view. I'm just going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to subdivide this just quite a few times here. Maybe one more. That looks pretty good. We have a bunch of subdivisions there. I'm going to add a displacement modifier, create a new displacement, and I am just going to make this clouds. So as you can see, it's very jagged, and then what we want to do is bring down our size quite a bit, or sorry, bring it up. That looks a little bit better. And then what we want to do is we want to add a subdivision surface modifier, and that's just going to smooth everything out. So it's going to smooth all of our geometry out, make things look a lot better. That looks much better. And what's cool is we can actually scale this down so that it's barely still in our camera view, and we just get this really, really nice effect. I'm going to enable auto smooth, and I'm going to also shade this smooth. That looks really, really nice. And again, guys, when it comes to anything art related, just experiment, rotate things around. Another thing that I like to do is I like to select my camera, and I like to just go into viewport display right here under my camera options, and then this little setting right here, if you just bump this value up, it kind of narrows you in on your scene. When it's all the way down, you basically can see right outside of the camera bounds, which helps because then you know where everything is. But I like to bump this up because then you know exactly what you're actually going to be rendering. Sometimes that helps a lot when it comes to setting up your scene. Yeah, so far we don't have any animation or anything, but this is starting to look really interesting. We can even go to our plane again, and we can make this more of like a silver metallic material. Guys, there's literally just so many things you can do. And I just want to show you how much fun it is to play with these HDRIs. Right now I believe we're on this one, but if I was to change it to Shanghai, which is a night scene, completely different vibe. And just with using metallic objects, you can just reflect that environment and get these really, really nice effects. It's just so much fun to just play around with these and just see what you're going to come up with here. Completely different effect. I'm going to show you guys another really cool trick that I like to use. Let's go ahead and see what this sunset one looks like. Really interesting. A little bit too warm for my liking though. This one's really cool. So guys, we have our camera here, right? And we can rotate our camera, we can adjust everything we want. But sometimes it's really annoying because you want to rotate 360 around your scene. I'm going to show you how to do that. Add, empty, plane axis. And you can't see it yet, so I'm going to scale it up just a bit. So there's our plane axis right there. And what we want to do is we want to parent our our camera to our empty. So you just want to click on that parent. Oops. You want to click on your camera and then your empty. Control P, parent. So now our empty. If we rotate our empty, we're actually rotating around our scene without having to really do much else. This looks really cool right here, actually. This is already starting to look like a very abstract scene. And what's great is we can literally adjust anything we want. There are no limits in Blender. And I was talking about this recently with a friend of mine. Blender is great because you really can't mess up unless you try. Things stay exactly where they are. If that wants to be there, it's going to stay there. In the normal studio setting, when you're trying to create art or do photography, there are so many variables that fall into place, the way the light hits, this and that. In Blender, everything stays exactly where you put it. You really can't mess up. It's a program. Like, it's up to you to decide what happens, and really the creativity is the limit. So that's what's one of those things I just love about Blender. It might sound so simple and obvious, but you really can't mess up unless you try. So let's go ahead and make this blue actually. That looks pretty cool. This could have some sort of, actually, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to move this down on the Z-axis, have it kind of sit more near the floor. I am going to go to my side view. Actually, let's go to a side view where we can actually see this thing. There we go. So I'm going to go to my side view, Shift D. Now holding Control, I'm going to keep it snapped into place. SZ to scale that down. That looks pretty good. Object, apply, scale. Okay. GZ to move that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, holding Control, I'm just going to kind of duplicate this a couple times. And let's just see what we have now. Now we have a really interesting little composition here. Again, guys, this black floor might be affecting our scene a lot. Yeah, it is. Sometimes it affects the coloration a lot, but this is starting to look really cool. Just make sure all my settings are correct. Another thing that I like to do is go down in here into color management. And what you actually want to do is you want to go and check out the look. So we have high contrast, medium contrast. We have all these options. Sometimes I like to do medium high contrast. It just kind of gives it that filmic look, which is really, really nice. So yeah, I think that looks really nice. But again, I want to kind of go in here and just add a few more things. I want to add in some spheres. So let's go ahead and add, actually, let's not add in a sphere. Let's go ahead and add in, let's see, a round cube, which is an add-on. So guys, if you need to know how to get this, let me know. Round cube, and then what I want to do is I want to set my radius to 1. And for the arc, I'm just going to choose 15. So it's going to give us a bunch of subdivisions. And then I'm going to click off of that, move it over here. As you can see, we have our nice round cube here. I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier to that. That looks great. Shade that smooth. And I want to give this a nice glass shader because I love rough glass. I just think it looks so cool. And then this is where we can get really, really abstract with it because the way that the glass has things shining through it is just awesome. I think I'm going to do, let me do like a nice, let's do like an orangish color. Be like something like that. That looks pretty cool. I like that a lot, actually. So now we can take this and we can literally just move it wherever we want. See how it's like nicely reflecting off of our floor here too? I like that. Sometimes I like to check to make sure it's not actually touching the floor or just ever so barely touching it. There we go. GZ. Sometimes the shortcuts do not work. That looks good. So now it's not touching that floor, but it's still in our scene nicely. That looks good. Yeah. And guys, this might not seem abstract to you, but to me it is. I would normally never do something like this for like a satisfying animation. But I'm also going to add some depth of field to this in just a second. Let me scale this sphere up. Let's go ahead and go to our top-down view, kind of bring it back in our scene. And we're going to bring it down, scale it up even more. That looks really nice. And now what I want to do is create a new shader for that one. Maybe just give that a nice blue shader. Now I'm going to go to my camera, which is under my empty because it's parented. I'm going to click on depth of field, and then I'm going to target this top cylinder. And then let's just, usually I like to start with a really low value and work from there. So this is really intense, not what I want. Maybe start at 1.5. Starting to look good, but still a little blurry. And if you go into your material preview, it's really easy to see this. See how everything kind of comes into focus there? That starts to look good there. Or you can not select your object and just do the distance, which is a lot easier sometimes. So maybe set this back to a really low value, adjust our distance. That looks like we're barely focused on that, which is good. Maybe we'll go with F10 and 11 meters. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. So you're kind of just honed in on our scene right here. Things are starting to look really interesting. Sometimes I'll take a sphere, duplicate it, and just move it above the other one. Maybe go ahead and give that more of a yellow shader. That's a little too intense. Maybe something like that. A lot of fun to mess around with this stuff. Something else that can be really fun to do is let's go ahead and go to our top-down view. Let's take our orange sphere, duplicate it, scale it up, and now what I want to do is I want to make a new glass material, lower the roughness, And I'm going to go ahead and click 1.2 for the IOR, index of refraction. Lower our hue and saturation. I'm going to move this down quite a bit. Notice how it's starting to like reflect things a little bit differently because of the IOR. What's really fun is you can duplicate this and you can put one sphere inside of the other, and it just becomes this really cool thing. Let me zoom in to show you the effect. You just get these really, really interesting refractions. So certainly a lot of fun to mess around with. And it's so easy to just mess with this glass and just get these really, really nice effects. Again, this is becoming something that I'm not really sure where it's going, but it's really, really fun to mess with. So definitely something to keep in mind. You could also make these glass if you wanted to. Go ahead and link the materials. Actually looks kind of cool. Maybe I'll make all these glass and just see what kind of scene we're starting to get here. Pretty cool. And you can literally make anything you want it. That's the beauty of Blender. There is no limits. As you can see, like, we just kind of created this interesting abstract scene from basically nothing. So again, guys, not sure where this is going next, but it's just kind of fun to mess around with this. Maybe what we can do is kind of create something a little more solidified. Maybe we'll just take the displacement off of this. Just see what that looks like. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to disable that for render too. It's cool because if you zoom in here, you can kind of notice there are some real elements to this, like the actual copper itself does look like copper. So even though abstract is supposed to be things that don't reflect the real world, we can still come in here, mess around with our scaling, and get some really, really interesting realistic results. Like, that's like pretty detailed. I actually really like this shader a lot. I think this is an actual sphere. This wasn't a round cube when we put this in here, so it's not going to be perfect. If you really zoom in on the top here, you're going to notice these little bunching lines, which is fine. When you're zoomed out like this, I don't think you're going to notice, but definitely something that I notice because I'm kind of like a perfectionist like that sometimes. Even like from this angle, oops, even from this angle, this is cool too. Why don't we change our camera angle up a little bit? I think that's what's throwing me off right now. Let's go to our empty, move our camera angle around. I like that, but then what I want to do is actually adjust the real angle of the camera, like follows. Ooh, now we're talking, guys. See, now we're talking. Maybe expand this for our scene, rotate this around quite a bit. Ooh, now we're talking. GZ to move that down just a bit. I think these are a little bit distracting. I'm going to scale this back up, move it over. This is starting to look really, really interesting here, though. Again, guys, just simply changing like very, very simple parts of this, you just get such cool effects. I'm going to bump the roughness up. I think rough glass might be the way to go for this one. Now, it's cool because if you put this in front of everything, notice how it kind of magnifies just like it would in the real world. Really cool stuff. That's kind of cool. Maybe we could have some sort of element that is actually magnifying something else. So if we take this and put this over here, duplicate that, how cool is that? We're getting real refraction. Huh, that's actually really interesting right there. See, that right there could be an animation in itself. The way that the refraction's handled. Is anybody else seeing how cool that is? No? I think that's awesome. See, like, right there, you might not know what's actually happening there, that there's an object behind that, but that is just super cool. Part of me also wants to just hide all of these cylinders because I feel like our spheres are kind of dominating the scene here, but I kind of like that. You know, I kind of like the idea of the spheres being like the main center focal point. Maybe what we can do is we can actually take one of these spheres and just create like a little matrix of spheres. So maybe just have spheres around our main blue one here, or we create a new object. What colors don't we have in here? We have blue and some orange and some blacks. Maybe we can pick like one more color that's close to orange, maybe like a red. Ooh, that kind of throws the whole scene off. Hold on. We kind of want things to sort of work with each other here. I do like the idea of doing another orange, but see, this one's like really close to red here though. Let's just see what it could look like. I'm going to scale that down. I am going to duplicate and just scale this down a bunch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to place these randomly, semi-randomly, around our object. Just like so. That looks pretty good. See, I made them like very symmetric, but I kind of like that. It looks pretty cool. Maybe what we could do is now we could just go in here and just choose some different colors for each of these. Maybe we'll have this one be a copper. What's the copper material called? There we go. And this one can be this material. And then this one can be that blue material. And then what do we need? Maybe like one more yellow one. We'll put the yellow one right here. See, that looks pretty cool. So like already just like that, guys, we have some really interesting abstract art. I think it flows pretty well. I kind of don't, I think this yellow one is getting a little bit lost. Maybe we can bring this maybe like right here, kind of create some tension in that area. Sometimes when you have objects very, very close to each other, it creates this visual tension, like they're gonna maybe collide or something's happening there. There's like a force kind of happening there. In the background, I think we could use a sphere like this. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to kind of zoom out here, move this back here. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, that was kind of where I wanted it. Now hold on. Let me move it even more to the background. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're in your camera perspective there where things are going to be. I'm going to move it even further back into the scene. Cool, just like that. GZ to move it down. Let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty cool. You almost can't really tell that it is a sphere there. See what happens if we were to make this yellow. Pretty cool. See, at this point, it's almost like we kind of have this sort of planetary look, which is really fun. But then does this become the sun right here? It's almost like this is the light source. But then this being the light source, it makes me not want to have these other spheres be yellow here. So maybe I'll just make another slightly off, maybe like a pink. Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and make these yellow ones pink. Does that still vibe well? Not bad. I did kind of like those slight hints of yellow. So maybe we'll have these two be yellow still. This one stays pink. So guys, like these are a lot of decisions that like I will make as I go. And I don't really know if it's the right decision or not, but that's kind of what makes art art. So I had this conversation with my art teachers before in college. Now I'm not a professional. I don't know if anyone's necessarily a professional at art because art is beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So art is never finished. I remember this is what one of my college professors told me. She said art is never truly finished. So and that kind of honestly irritated me a little bit. I'll be honest, but it's kind of true. I could make a million changes to this and I still might not love it. But she said art is never finished. And I just remember that really stuck with me. I was like, damn, I guess you're right. Like it's never finished. Will I ever be truly satisfied with this piece? I'm honestly not sure. Let's mess with the depth of field a little bit. Let me select, I think. I kind of want to focus on this sphere here. Part of me doesn't want to use depth of field because I do feel like it's messing up the scene a little bit. And then part of me wonders if we should make this cube a little bit rougher here. That's kind of cool. We don't want to make it like too rough, but then again, that is like the vibe of the scene. Guys, there's just so many creative decisions to make. I don't know if I'm making the right ones. Like that might not have been the right creative decision there. I kind of like that vibe of that light, but it kind of takes away from this. There's just so many things to think about. So let's go to our camera real quick. I want to show you guys a quick cool setting here. I'm gonna go to my solid view. If you go to viewport display, composition guides, you can actually you can click on these different guides. I hope you can see this on your screen. I'm just gonna snap all of them on there. There are these lines that go across and they kind of allow you to adjust things compositionally to make them look good. So like there's the rule of thirds is a great one. Like if I just have the rule of thirds on, that's pretty simple. Everyone really knows the rule of thirds. It's commonly used in photography and artwork. You kind of just try to line things up with these lines. Sometimes if you want to center something perfectly, it might be slightly off, so you can align it with one of the thirds. Let's just see. Sometimes I like to turn all these on and just align things randomly, but yet it sometimes ends up not looking so random. These are really, I don't know how I got these this perfect. They're actually really lined up. For example, if you look at this line right here, this could probably be just slightly more centered as such. And then this one could probably be pulled this way just a bit like that. This one, that's fine. I mean, this is such a big object, it's hard to actually align it with anything. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. There's really not much that I changed there, but still looks kind of cool. I actually kind of like this over more. I like these overlapping. I feel like they create some movement here. Maybe move this one back to create that tension again. Oh, there's just so many things to think about, but I think this looks really cool. I really want to render this out and just see what this is going to look like. There's another thing that we could do to kind of add to this effect. If we go into our compositor, I'm going to add in a lens distortion. And I'll show you guys what that looks like in just a second. And I'm going to add in a viewer. So a viewer is just basically going to take our output and it is going to show us what the image looks like with our added compositing there. V, if you press V, it will kind of shrink the viewer a little bit, and then I think Alt V increases it. Yep, so V is to shrink, Alt V is to expand that again. So right now we have our denoiser that'll process the image, and then it'll add some lens distortion. Now for our value, I'm just going to do 0.1 just to show you guys what it's going to look like. It's going to be pretty intense. I'm probably going to knock that down to a lower value. We got 1920 by 1920, 100%. Let's just go ahead and give ourselves 1,000 samples, and let's go ahead and render this, and let's just see what we get. Should not take too long to render. Yes, this is going to take about 3 minutes, so I might speed this part up if it actually takes that long. So our render's all done, and as you can see, we have this nice lens distortion effect. I actually kind of like that. We can bump the value down just a bit more, but as you can see, we kind of have this separation of colors towards the edges here. I actually really like this. So what I'm going to do is probably for the thumbnail of this video, I'm going to actually expand our camera view. So I'm going to make this like, 1920 by 1080 to have that nice landscape view. But this actually looks really cool. I actually really like how this came out, which is, again, the beauty of Blender. You really don't know what you're going to get until you render sometimes. And the denoising looked like it kicked in really well. We have this nice soft glass look. We have this light shining from behind. Because of the way that our camera angle was. Guys, this came out really cool. Let me go ahead and save this and just show you a few more cool things that we can do. I'm just going to save this as abstract thumbnail, just like that. Save. So let's go back to our layout. And what I want to do is I actually want to go to our empty that's controlling our camera. And again, guys, I know this is simple stuff for you, but if you just control the Z just a little bit more, notice how we can easily just quickly get a completely different scene. If we just go to the other side, you guys can literally imagine if you have a project where they need like a bunch of different views of something. This is a really easy way to do that. Now you have a completely different view. Now, yeah, you might have to adjust your floor plane, but it's almost too easy to do things in Blender sometimes. Or what you could do, which I've done before in a previous animation, is you actually just animate this empty to rock back and forth like this. And it is pretty cool, the effect you can get. You kind of get this 3D, almost like this stereoscopic kind of view, where it's like just bouncing back and forth like that. Super cool. Definitely could be used in a future animation, especially with this right here, because when you move this around, you get this kind of a really interesting effect with the refraction. So just so much fun to play around with that. So guys, I just want to show you like a couple more things. This was really cool just for this part of the tutorial and just kind of walking you through my process. But in terms of like creating abstract art, it's also really simple with this glass and with a simple HDRI. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up a new document. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, delete that. I'm going to add in a sphere, kind of scale that up, shade it smooth, snap to my camera view. Go back to our sphere, and I'm just going to give this a nice glass shader. glass. We'll keep it by default what it is. I'm going to go to my color here. I'm going to click on an environment texture. And I'm just going to show you guys a quick way to get like a nice blurred background. I'm just going to click on the peppermint plant HDRI, which I was using before. Go to my rendered view, and then I'm going to go to cycles, GPU. And now, as you can see, we have this nice blurred background. And if we go to our sphere, we can adjust how much the background is blurred. And I know this seems so simple, but it's actually something that I have not seen anyone else use yet. I don't know if I'm the first one to come up with this technique, but for sure you guys are going to want to check this out because it's super useful, especially when you add depth of field with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and give us 80 degrees on our camera here. I'm going to rotate this 45 degrees, or not, 45, there we go. And then for our camera, 45 as well. And then -7. And I'm just going to call this abstract camera. And this is, yeah, this mainly has to do with the camera in the background, but this sphere that's around here, here's what's another cool thing. So I'm going to keep the roughness where it is. I'm actually going to add a displacement modifier to our sphere. And I'm going to create a new texture. Now hold on, let me back this up so you guys can see what's going on here. So our camera, we have to go to our materials and add in a cloud texture. All right, so to see how we have this cloud texture here, I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier. So after our displacement, we have this nice subdivision. Snap back to my camera, go to rendered view. Now look at the background. Now we have this completely distorted background. So if you want to go ahead and get abstract with it, now you can. And what's cool is no one really knows like necessarily what's going on here. I can up this roughness on the sphere, adjust the rotation. Now you just have this really abstract background that you're working with. Now here's what's even cooler. You do not have to use an HDRI for this. You can actually go ahead and instead of selecting an HDRI, I'm just going to go to my downloads. I'm just going to select a random image. How about this image right here? Boom, just like that, you guys have an abstract background without really doing much work at all. And then I can adjust the rotation of the sphere and completely change the background. I kind of like that. That looks cool right there, right? So we have this awesome effect. And then you can, of course, scale the sphere up and down. You can completely change the effect here. Just make sure that the sphere is around your camera. So right now our camera is within the sphere. Make sure that that stays true. And that's pretty much how you get a nice blurred background. Let's say you have a color scheme you really, really like. I'm just going to go into my downloads folder and find something with a color scheme that I really, really like. I love purple. Let's see. See, like now we're getting into some really cool images here. This is actually a render that I made with a color scheme that I like. I'm going to open that. And just like that, we have this awesome effect. You guys might notice the sphere is a little bit jaggedy. Don't forget to shade that smooth, turn on auto smoothing. And then if it's still really jaggedy, just up those subdivisions. There we go. Now it's much smoother. So yeah, and you guys can easily do this with literally anything. Like any image you want, you can go ahead and just drop it in there and you just get this really, really nice effect. Look at that. Look how trippy that is without, it's literally minimal effort. Like it's almost too easy. Of course, you can zoom your camera out. You don't have to have this floor plane in here. I'm just showing you guys how to create this. You can see this little point where it's pinching right here is actually the top of the sphere. So if you want to just rotate that out, you can. It's actually kind of cool. Like it kind of makes for a cool composition. But let's say you just wanted to make like a quick abstract background for your desktop. Boom, there you go. You want to swap it out with another image? Sure, no problem. Let's pick something a little more colorful. Boom, now you have an even trippier background. Guys, it's literally too easy. And this is just with literally a sphere and your camera and a background. That's it. And just like that, you're creating these really, really cool backgrounds. Now, of course, you can go to your sphere. You can go to your material that your sphere that has on it. And then your IOR is 1.45 right now by default. That's the default glass shader. I'm going to do 1.2. And now look at the different effect. I can go ahead and bump this up in real time. And look at the kind of effects you can get. You can turn your roughness down. You don't have to have roughness high. This is roughness all the way down, and you're getting these really, really cool effects. I'm going to go ahead and narrow in our camera view here so we can see what we have. Guys, it is just so much fun to play around with this. Really, it is a lot of fun. Look at that. You can even animate the index of refraction of your IOR, and you can create these really cool abstract loops. Guys, there's just so much you can do in Blender. I just love showing this stuff because it's so simple. Anyone, even a beginner, can go ahead and get their hands on this. Again, guys, the way I'm changing the HDRI, world properties right here, and you literally just change, instead of color, you want to select environment background. Now, if we were to zoom really far out, you'll notice this is our scene here. This is our glass sphere, and this is just an image in the background. It really is nothing special. But when you start combining different angles and perspectives, you're getting some really cool effects. Let's swap another image out and just see what we get. Let's go ahead and select this nebula. Wow, look at that. Now for this one, I probably would up the roughness just a bit, and then I can adjust my sphere to the background that I want. That's, oh wait, I had something there. See, I kind of like that right there. I think that looks really cool. Wow, really trippy. And guys, if you want, you can go back to your texture and you can give it something different. Completely different effect. Magic texture is always pretty cool. You can use Voronoi, Stucky, anything you guys want you can use. That's kind of the beauty of it. So I just wanted to show you guys that technique really quick. It's super fun to do, super easy. And you just get these really, really awesome effects. We'll do one more just because they are so much fun to mess around with. This one's cool. I bet you this one will turn out really interesting. Wow. So yeah, again, guys, you can fine tune this to your liking. Everybody's got a different preference, but I think this looks really cool. And then you can rotate your sphere however you want it. I mean, right there, that's a cool desktop background, you know? And what's cool is you can make your own background in Photoshop, import it into Blender, and then you have your own artwork that's pretty much created from scratch. And the other cool part is that since you're using a background and distorting it so much, you're not going to run into any copyright issues. So that's just kind of a nice way to kind of save yourself from people saying, oh, that's my background. Well, you can't really tell it's anyone's background right now. Now, if you really need to, be respectful to the original artist and credit their work. But usually you don't. When you're doing stuff like this is, I bet you would never be able to trace this back to the original image. So, yeah, just something to do to kind of create that stuff really quickly for you guys. Again, you can do literally any image. This was an image that Dolly generated for me, so you're not really getting much here. There's just a big white background. You can do some kind of purple landscape here. Pretty cool stuff, guys. But I just wanted to show you this because it is super easy to create that abstract art. Again, this was our original thing, so I'm going to use this as a thumbnail. Actually, I'll just show you guys how I create my thumbnails real quick, just a last minute pro tip. So right now our resolution is 1920 by 1920. Actually, I'm going to make the Y resolution 1080, right? And I'm going to press enter on that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my camera and I'm just going to zoom the camera out a bit. Maybe like that. That looks pretty good. But then I might actually just adjust the rotation a little bit. Or maybe I'll just use the original image. See, it's getting cut off a little bit, so it's like a completely different composition now. But maybe what I can do is lower our camera. Go like that. And then what I'll do is I'll maybe rotate our background. There's a lot of trial and error when it comes to like making things work for every scenario. Like sometimes I'll create a YouTube tutorial and then the thumbnail will be just as hard as the actual tutorial. But yeah, I just want to show you guys kind of like my process as to how I create this. That looks pretty good. I think I could go with something like that. And then maybe just rotate our empty just a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. Rotate this to fill the space. What do you guys think? Does that look abstract enough? So some information is getting lost, so I'm a little bit upset here. Because, so the way I do want to explain, sorry, I have to explain one last thing to you guys. When you're actually creating these abstract scenes, if you're using an orthographic camera, notice what happens when I rotate up. You don't, with an orthographic camera, you cannot see an HDRI because an HDRI is set into like normal perspective from like a normal camera, but orthographic cameras don't really, that's not really a thing. So I don't think any HDRI will ever work with that. But yeah, so it's kind of just something you have to deal with. Kind of annoying, but whatever. I'm going to go ahead and just raise this up and kind of just adjust this just a little bit more to get the kind of scene that I'm looking for. That might have to do right there. See, I think that looks pretty cool. And then we can kind of adjust our camera even more. I didn't want to have to like really clip it too much, but I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to render something like this for the actual full thumbnail. But guys, that's pretty much been the tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed. This is more of just kind of a walkthrough of my process and just kind of what I think looks cool. So if there's anything you guys want to see in the next tutorial, please let me know. A lot of you have requested that I do some beginner stuff, like just how to navigate Blender and all that stuff. So I can get into that. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Please drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this helped you with your process. And I hope to see you in the next tutorial. See you later.